The giant ship fell from the sky like a burning mountain. Doctor watched from her research station as something impossible crashed into the Pacific Ocean. The impact sent waves racing toward the shore and shook the ground beneath her feet. "What was that?" asked Doctor, her research partner. He pointed at the massive splash still rising from where the object had hit the water. Grabbed her tablet and started recording data. "I don't know, but it's big, really big." 3 days before the crash, far above Earth's atmosphere, alien beings called that had been dumping their garbage. They flew around the galaxy in huge ships, throwing away broken things on planets they thought were useless. Earth was just another dump site to them. They looked like tall, thin creatures with blue skin and large black eyes. They were very smart and had technology that could travel between stars, but they also thought they were better than everyone else in the galaxy. Commander stood on his disposal ship, looking down at the blue and green planet below. "Another primitive world," he said to his crew, "perfect for our waste." The object they were dumping was special. It was called the Eternal Convergence, and it was supposed to be the most powerful weapon ever built. The ship was as long as a city and made from materials that could bend space and time, but it had never worked properly. For hundreds of years, the best scientists had tried to make the ship work. They could not figure out why its engines would not start or why its weapons would not fire. The ship just sat there, dead and useless. "The Council has decided this thing is broken forever," said. "Dump it on that water world and let's go." The Eternal Convergence fell toward Earth like a metal asteroid. Its outer hull glowed red-hot as it entered the atmosphere. The ship was so big that people could see it falling from hundreds of miles away. Worked at an international research station that studied the ocean. Scientists from many countries worked there together. When the object hit the water, alarms started ringing all over the station. "You need to see this," called Dr. Sarah from the communications room. Sarah studied languages and codes for the research team. "The impact created some kind of energy pulse. Our instruments are going crazy." Ran to the control room where screens showed data from underwater sensors. The readings made no sense. "This can't be right," she said. "These numbers say the object is generating its own gravity field." Doctor, the station's military advisor, looked at the data with serious eyes. He had been a Navy captain before becoming a scientist. "Whatever that thing is, it's not from Earth," he said. "We need to get a submarine down there." The next morning, climbed into a research submarine with and Sarah. The submarine dove deep into the ocean where the object had crashed. As they got closer, their instruments detected something amazing. The object was not damaged at all. It sat on the ocean floor like it belonged there. The submarine's lights showed a ship covered in strange symbols and made from materials that seemed to change color as they watched. "Look at the size of that thing," whispered. "It's like a floating city." Pressed her face against the submarine's window. "Those symbols, they're not like any writing system I've ever seen. Sarah, can you make sense of them?" Sarah stared at the alien markings covering the ship's surface. "They look like mathematics, but not any math we know. The patterns are too complex." As their submarine moved closer, something unexpected happened. Lights began turning on inside the alien ship. Panels that had been dark for centuries started glowing with soft blue light. "It's responding to us," said with excitement. "Whatever this thing is, it's still alive." Checked his radio. "Base, this is the research team. We've found something incredible down here. This is not a natural object. This is definitely a spacecraft." Back on the research station, teams of scientists started working around the clock. They sent down more submarines and underwater robots to study the alien ship. Each time humans got close to the vessel, more of its systems seemed to wake up. Dr. Elizabeth Grant, the station's director, called scientists from around the world. "We need experts in every field," she told. "This could change everything we know about physics and space." Within a week, the research station was full of the people on Earth. Physicists, engineers, computer scientists, and linguists all came to study the alien ship. They brought equipment from every major country. The ship did something strange when humans were near it. Computers that had been dead for thousands of years started running programs. Doors that had never opened began responding to human touch. It was like the ship had been waiting for something specific. "This doesn't make sense," said Doctor, a Russian engineer. "Why would an alien ship respond to human presence? We should be completely unknown to whoever built this." Spent long hours studying the ship's construction. The materials were unlike anything on Earth. They seemed to be made from pure energy held together by forces that human science could barely understand. "Look at this," she told one evening as they reviewed data. "The ship's power source isn't nuclear or chemical. It's something else entirely, something that warps space itself." Nodded, "And these symbols Sarah's been working on. They're not just decoration, they're some kind of control system." Sarah had been working day and night to understand the alien writing. She discovered that the symbols changed depending on who was looking at them. When had studied the ship, the symbols meant one thing, but when humans looked at them, they seemed to mean something completely different. "I think this ship was built by someone else," Sarah told the team. "The aliens who dumped it here. They didn't understand it either. They were just as confused as we are." Felt excitement growing inside her. Then maybe we can figure out what they couldn't. Maybe we can make this thing work. High above Earth, sensors detected energy signatures coming from the planet where they had dumped their broken weapon. Commander looked at the readings with confusion. "That's impossible," he said to his crew. "That ship has been dead for centuries. Nothing should be able to activate it." But something was activating it. Deep in the Pacific Ocean, the eternal convergence was slowly waking up after thousands of years of sleep. And for the first time in its existence, it was responding to minds that could understand what it was truly meant to become. The giant ship fell from the sky like a burning mountain. Doctor watched from her research station as something impossible crashed into the Pacific Ocean. The impact sent waves racing toward the shore and shook the ground beneath her feet. "What was that?" asked Doctor, her research partner. He pointed at the massive splash still rising from where the object had hit the water. Grabbed her tablet and started recording data. "I don't know, but it's big, really big." 3 days before the crash, far above Earth's atmosphere, alien beings called that had been dumping their garbage. They flew around the galaxy in huge ships, throwing away broken things on planets they thought were useless. Earth was just another dump site to them. They looked like tall, thin creatures with blue skin and large black eyes. They were very smart and had technology that could travel between stars, but they also thought they were better than everyone else in the galaxy. Commander stood on his disposal ship, looking down at the blue and green planet below. "Another primitive world," he said to his crew, "perfect for our waste." The object they were dumping was special. It was called the Eternal Convergence, and it was supposed to be the most powerful weapon ever built. The ship was as long as a city and made from materials that could bend space and time, but it had never worked properly. For hundreds of years, the best scientists had tried to make the ship work. They could not figure out why its engines would not start or why its weapons would not fire. The ship just sat there, dead and useless. "The Council has decided this thing is broken forever," said. "Dump it on that water world and let's go." The Eternal Convergence fell toward Earth like a metal asteroid. Its outer hull glowed red-hot as it entered the atmosphere. The ship was so big that people could see it falling from hundreds of miles away. Worked at an international research station that studied the ocean. Scientists from many countries worked there together. When the object hit the water, alarms started ringing all over the station. "You need to see this," called Dr. Sarah from the communications room. Sarah studied languages and codes for the research team. The impact created some kind of energy pulse. Our instruments are going crazy. Ran to the control room where screens showed data from underwater sensors. The readings made no sense. This can't be right, she said. These numbers say the object is generating its own gravity field. Doctor, the station's military advisor, looked at the data with serious eyes. He had been a Navy captain before becoming a scientist. Whatever that thing is, it's not from Earth, he said. We need to get a submarine down there. The next morning, climbed into a research submarine with Sarah. The submarine dove deep into the ocean where the object had crashed. As they got closer, their instruments detected something amazing. The object was not damaged at all. It sat on the ocean floor like it belonged there. The submarine's lights showed a ship covered in strange symbols and made from materials that seemed to change color as they watched. "Look at the size of that thing," whispered. "It's like a floating city." Pressed her face against the submarine's window. "Those symbols, they're not like any writing system I've ever seen. Sarah, can you make sense of them?" Sarah stared at the alien markings covering the ship's surface. "They look like mathematics, but not any math we know. The patterns are too complex." As their submarine moved closer, something unexpected happened. Lights began turning on inside the alien ship. Panels that had been dark for centuries started glowing with soft blue light. "It's responding to us," said with excitement. "Whatever this thing is, it's still alive." Checked his radio. "Base, this is the research team. We've found something incredible down here. This is not a natural object. This is definitely a spacecraft." Back on the research station, teams of scientists started working around the clock. They sent down more submarines and underwater robots to study the alien ship. Each time humans got close to the vessel, more of its systems seemed to wake up. Dr. Elizabeth Grant, the station's director, called scientists from around the world. "We need experts in every field," she told. "This could change everything we know about physics and space." Within a week, the research station was full of the people on Earth. Physicists, engineers, computer scientists, and linguists all came to study the alien ship. They brought equipment from every major country. The ship did something strange when humans were near it. Computers that had been dead for thousands of years started running programs. Doors that had never opened began responding to human touch. It was like the ship had been waiting for something specific. "This doesn't make sense," said Doctor, a Russian engineer. "Why would an alien ship respond to human presence? We should be completely unknown to whoever built this." Spent long hours studying the ship's construction. The materials were unlike anything on Earth. They seemed to be made from pure energy held together by forces that human science could barely understand. "Look at this," she told one evening as they reviewed data. "The ship's power source isn't nuclear or chemical. It's something else entirely, something that warps space itself." Nodded. "And these symbols Sarah's been working on. They're not just decoration, they're some kind of control system." Sarah had been working day and night to understand the alien writing. She discovered that the symbols changed depending on who was looking at them. When it studied the ship, the symbols meant one thing, but when humans looked at them, they seemed to mean something completely different. "I think this ship was built by someone else," Sarah told the team. "The aliens who dumped it here. They didn't understand it either. They were just as confused as we are." Felt excitement growing inside her. "Then maybe we can figure out what they couldn't. Maybe we can make this thing work." High above Earth, sensors detected energy signatures coming from the planet where they had dumped their broken weapon. Commander looked at the readings with confusion. "That's impossible," he said to his crew. "That ship has been dead for centuries. Nothing should be able to activate it." But something was activating it. Deep in the Pacific Ocean, the eternal convergence was slowly waking up after thousands of years of sleep. And for the first time in its existence, it was responding to minds that could understand what it was truly meant to become. 3 months had passed since the alien ship crashed into the Pacific Ocean. The research station had grown into a floating city filled with scientists from every nation on Earth. Doctor barely slept anymore. Every day brought new discoveries that made her head spin with possibilities. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Sarah sat in her small office at 3 in the morning, surrounded by papers covered in alien symbols. Coffee cups and empty food containers covered her desk. She had been staring at the same sequence of symbols for hours. "There's something here," she whispered to herself. "Something important." Sarah had noticed that the symbols seemed to change based on who was looking at them. When she looked at them alone, they appeared one way. When she looked at them while thinking about her childhood, they shifted slightly. When she was angry or excited, they became completely different. She called on the radio. "You need to get down here. I think I've figured something out." Arrived at Sarah's office still wearing her diving suit. She had been in the underwater lab studying the ship's power systems. "What did you find?" Sarah pointed at her computer screen. "These aren't just symbols. They're equations that describe how consciousness works. Look at this pattern here. When I'm happy, the symbols form one equation. When I'm sad, they form another." Leaned closer to the screen. "That's impossible. How can symbols change based on emotions?" "That's just it," Sarah said with excitement. "I don't think the symbols are changing. I think they're showing us what they always meant, but only certain types of minds can read them correctly." Over the next week, Sarah worked with Doctor to test her theory. They brought different people to look at the symbols while monitoring their brain activity. Engineers saw mathematical formulas. Artists saw beautiful patterns. Musicians saw compositions that made sound when played. The alien writing was like a mirror that showed each person exactly what they needed to see. But it only worked with human minds. When they tested the symbols with advanced computer programs that tried to copy alien thinking, nothing happened. "The ship was built for us," told the research team during their morning meeting. "Not for humans specifically, but for minds that work like human minds." Doctor had been studying the ship's defensive systems. "But that doesn't make sense. How could aliens from thousands of years ago build something for humans? They couldn't have known we existed." Dr. Grant, the station director, had called in experts on ancient history and archaeology. "Maybe they did know," she said, "or maybe they built it for someone like us." The answer came from deep inside the ship's central computer core, and her team had finally managed to access the alien data storage systems. What they found changed everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. The ship's memory banks contained fragments of information about its builders. They were called the architects, and they had lived millions of years ago. The data showed images of beings that looked nothing like the blue-skinned who had dumped the ship on Earth. The architects had been creative, emotional, and chaotic in their thinking. They built things not just for practical reasons, but because they were beautiful or interesting. Their technology was designed to respond to imagination and intuition as much as logic and calculation. "They were like us," said as she watched the ancient recordings. "They thought like we do." But the architects had vanished long ago. Their civilization had collapsed or moved on, leaving behind only scattered pieces of their technology. They had found some of these pieces and tried to use them, but they could never make the technology work properly. "The think in straight lines," Sarah explained to the team. "Everything has to be logical and follow rules, but this technology requires creative thinking. It needs minds that can hold contradictory ideas at the same time." Doctor, the Russian engineer, laughed when he heard this. "So the aliens gave us their broken technology because they couldn't figure out how to use their imagination." Nodded. "Exactly. And now we need to figure out what this thing was really designed to do." The ship systems were incredibly complex. As the human team learned more about how they worked, they realized the vessel was not just a weapon or a transport. It was something much more ambitious. The eternal convergence could bend space and time around itself. Its engines didn't just move the ship through space. They moved it through reality itself, allowing it to exist in multiple places at once or travel backward in time. This is beyond anything we imagined, Doctor said as he studied the engine specifications. This ship could rewrite the laws of physics in a small area around itself. But the most amazing discovery came when they accessed the ship's weapon systems. The architects hadn't built guns or missiles. They had built something that could change the basic rules that held matter and energy together. It's not just a weapon, realized as he read the technical data. It's a tool for reshaping reality. You could use it to create new forms of matter or erase things from existence entirely. Felt a chill when she understood what meant. They tried to turn this into a simple weapon, but it's actually a device for rewriting the universe itself. The team began to understand why the ship had never worked for them. Their logical, rigid thinking could not handle technology that required creativity and flexibility. They had tried to force the ship to work like their own weapons, missing its true potential entirely. Meanwhile, monitoring stations around Earth detected increased alien activity in nearby space. Ships were moving toward the solar system, but they were staying far away and watching. They know something's happening, told. Our communications are probably being monitored. Looked at the data streaming from the alien ship's awakening systems. Let them watch. They had centuries to figure this out and failed. Now it's our turn. Deep inside the ship's core, systems that had been dormant since the architects disappeared were slowly coming online. The vessel was learning about human minds and finding them surprisingly familiar. For the first time in millions of years, the eternal convergence had found pilots who could understand its purpose. But understanding and controlling were two different things. The ship's power was immense, and humanity was still learning how to think big enough to use it properly. Doctor made another important discovery while studying the ship's navigation systems. This thing doesn't just travel through space, she told the team. It can navigate through possibilities themselves. It can choose which version of reality it wants to exist in. Stared at the readings on her screen. Are you saying this ship can travel to alternate dimensions? I'm saying it can create alternate dimensions, Sarah replied, and then choose to exist in whichever one it prefers. The implications were staggering. Humanity had inherited technology that could literally rewrite the rules of existence, but they were still learning how to read the instruction manual. Knew that other alien species would not be happy when they discovered what was happening on Earth. They had probably told other civilizations that the ship was broken and worthless. Now they would have to admit they had been wrong. Or they would have to make sure no one ever found out the truth. Looked up at the stars through the research station's windows. Somewhere out there, alien minds were trying to decide what to do about the primitive humans who had succeeded where advanced civilizations had failed. She smiled grimly. They were about to learn that sometimes the best solutions come from minds that refuse to accept that something is impossible. 6 months after the alien ship's discovery, Doctor stood inside the vessel's main engineering bay. The room was enormous, filled with machines that hummed with strange energy. Holographic displays showed information in symbols that her team was finally learning to read. It's working, she said into her radio. The main power core is responding to our modifications. Above her, Doctor monitored the ship systems from the new command center. Human engineers had spent weeks installing equipment that could interface with the alien technology. It was like trying to connect a Stone Age tool to a quantum computer, but somehow they were making it work. Power levels are climbing steadily, reported. Whatever you did down there, it's working better than we hoped. Smiled as she watched the alien machinery come alive around her. The ship's original builders, the architects, had designed everything to be beautiful as well as functional. The power core looked like a small star contained in a sphere of impossible materials. But her team hadn't just repaired the ship, they had improved it. The breakthrough had come when Doctor realized that human engineering was fundamentally different from both the architects and where alien civilizations built things to work perfectly under ideal conditions, humans built things to keep working when everything went wrong. Redundancy had explained to the international team of engineers. We need backup systems for the backup systems. The architects had built elegant technology that was incredibly powerful but fragile. A single failure could shut down entire sections of the ship. They had tried to fix this by adding more computing power, but they missed the real problem. Humans fixed it by adding chaos. Doctor had suggested the solution after studying how human brains worked compared to alien minds. We don't think in straight lines, he had said. When one pathway gets blocked, we automatically find another route. So the human engineering team had rebuilt the ship's control systems to think like human minds. Instead of one perfect solution to each problem, they created dozens of imperfect solutions that could work together. It's like jazz music, Doctor had explained. Each instrument can improvise, but they all work together to create something beautiful. The result was a ship that was no longer just architect technology. It was something new, a fusion of ancient alien knowledge and human creativity. Walked through corridors that now contained both alien machinery and human modifications. Cables ran alongside energy conduits. Computer screens displayed both alien symbols and human text. Emergency supplies were stored next to exotic matter containers. "You need to see this," called Doctor from the weapons testing bay. "The reality warping systems are online, and they're responding to our modifications." Made her way to the weapons bay, which had been the most challenging part of the ship to understand. The architects hadn't built traditional weapons. Instead, they had created devices that could change the fundamental rules of physics in small areas. But the human modifications had turned these tools into something the architects never imagined. "Show me what we've got," said as she entered the testing chamber. Doctor pointed at a target made of the strongest materials Earth could produce. "Watch this," he said, and activated the modified weapon system. The target didn't explode or melt. It simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, not vaporized, but erased from reality as if it had never been there at all. "We've created a weapon that doesn't just destroy matter," explained. "It destroys the concepts that hold matter together. It can unmake the very idea of something." Felt a chill of both excitement and fear. What happens if we use this on something large? "We could theoretically erase an entire planet from existence," said quietly. "Not blow it up, but make it so that it never existed in the first place." The implications were staggering. Humanity had taken the architect's reality-shaping tools and turned them into weapons of absolute destruction. But they had also added something the architects hadn't included: moral safeguards. Dr. Grant had insisted that the weapons systems include multiple authorization requirements and built-in limitations. "We're not building a tool for conquest," she had said. "We're building a tool for survival." Meanwhile, the ship's engines had also been transformed by human modifications. The architects had designed them to move through space and time. Humans had figured out how to make them move through probability itself. "We can navigate through possible futures," explained Dr. Sarah, who had been working with the navigation systems. "The ship can calculate millions of potential outcomes and choose the path that leads to the result we want." Tested the navigation system by asking it to plot a course to Mars. The ship's response surprised everyone. Instead of showing one route through space, it showed dozens of different possible journeys, each leading to a different version of Mars. "It's showing us every possible way the trip could go," Sarah said, "including futures where Mars has been colonized, futures where it's been destroyed, and futures where it never existed. Realized what this meant. We can choose not just where to go, but which version of reality we want to encounter when we get there. The ship was becoming something unprecedented in the galaxy. It combined architect creativity, human adaptability, and capabilities that neither species had possessed alone. But the most important change was in the ship's name and purpose. The research team had voted to rename it from the Eternal Convergence to the Defiant Dawn. The name represented humanity's refusal to accept limitations and their determination to face whatever challenges awaited them among the stars. "We're not just repairing alien technology," told the assembled team during their evening meeting. "We're creating something new, something that represents the best of both human and architect thinking." The ship's computer systems had also evolved under human guidance, where the architects had programmed logical responses to every situation. Humans had taught the ship to improvise and adapt. "It's learning to think like us," Doctor reported. "The AI systems are developing something like intuition. They're making decisions based on hunches and creative leaps, not just calculations." This transformation hadn't gone unnoticed by the watchers in space. Monitoring stations had detected massive energy emissions coming from Earth. The power signatures matched no known technology, not even the broken ship they had dumped in the ocean. Commander received reports that made his blood run cold. The energy readings suggested that the worthless vessel was not only operational, but had been modified beyond recognition. "That's impossible," he told his science officers. "No primitive species could understand architect technology. We've been studying it for centuries and barely comprehend the basics." But the evidence was undeniable. Something on Earth had awakened the ancient ship and transformed it into something new. Stood in the ship's redesigned command center, looking at displays that showed the vessel's complete status. Every system was online and operating at levels the architects had never achieved. The ship was ready for its first real test flight. "All systems green," reported from his position at the tactical station. "The Defiant Dawn is ready for space." Felt a mixture of pride and apprehension. They had succeeded where an advanced alien civilization had failed. They had taken broken technology and made it better than new, but she knew that their success would not go unnoticed or unchallenged. "Begin final preparations for launch," she ordered. "It's time to show the galaxy what happens when you underestimate humanity." The ship's engines began building power for departure. Deep in the vessel's core, human modifications and architect technology worked together in perfect harmony. The Defiant Dawn was no longer just a weapon or a transport. It was proof that sometimes the best way to solve an impossible problem is to refuse to believe that it's impossible in the first place. The Defiant Dawn lifted off from Earth's surface like a silver mountain rising into the sky. Captain stood on the bridge, watching his home planet shrink below them. He still couldn't quite believe that he was commanding a ship that could rewrite reality itself. "All systems operating perfectly," reported Doctor from her position at the science station. "The modifications are holding steady under full power." It had been 8 months since the alien vessel crashed into the Pacific Ocean. Now it was humanity's greatest achievement, rising through Earth's atmosphere toward the asteroid belt, where they would conduct the first real tests of the ship's capabilities. Had been chosen as captain because of his military experience and his ability to make quick decisions under pressure. The ship needed someone who could think tactically, but also someone who understood the scientific principles they were working with. "Doctor, how are the navigation systems responding?" he asked. Sarah looked up from her console with amazement in her eyes. "The ship isn't just moving through space, Captain. It's choosing which version of space to move through. We're navigating through probability streams like a boat navigating through water." The first test was simple: travel to Mars and back in record time. The old architect engines would have taken days to make the journey. The human-modified systems completed it in 3 hours, arriving at Mars through a probability path that avoided all space debris and gravitational complications. The ship calculated 17 million possible routes to Mars, Doctor reported. It chose the one where everything went perfectly, and then made that possibility into reality. But the real test came when they reached the outer solar system. Long-range sensors detected something approaching from deep space. 3 scout ships investigating the energy readings they had been monitoring from Earth. "Unknown vessels, this is Commander Ayler of the Empire," came a transmission in accented English. "You are operating stolen technology. Prepare to be boarded for inspection." Looked at his crew. They had prepared for this moment, but facing actual aliens was different from running simulations. "This should be interesting," said quietly. "They think we stole their technology. They don't realize they never understood how to use it in the first place." Opened a communication channel. "This is Captain of the Earth vessel Defiant Dawn. The technology you're referring to was abandoned on our planet. We salvaged it and made it operational through our own efforts." The commander's response came back quickly, filled with arrogance and disbelief. "Impossible. No primitive species could comprehend architect systems. Return our property immediately or face the consequences." "Your property?" asked with a slight smile. "You mean the broken ship you dumped in our ocean because you couldn't figure out how to make it work?" There was a long pause before the replied. "The vessel was temporarily non-functional. We intended to retrieve it after developing proper activation procedures." Laughed despite the tension. "They're lying," she whispered too. "Their own records show they declared it permanently worthless." The 3 ships moved into an attack formation. They were sleek vessels designed for speed and firepower, much smaller than the Defiant Dawn, but built with technology that had conquered dozens of worlds. "Human vessel, you have 30 seconds to surrender the stolen ship," Commander Ayler transmitted. "Resistance will be met with overwhelming force." Looked at his tactical displays. The ships carried enough firepower to destroy a city, but they were designed to fight conventional enemies using conventional physics. "Doctor, are our defensive systems ready?" he asked. Checked her readings. "All systems green, Captain. The reality warping shields are online." "Then let's show them what happens when you try to reclaim your garbage," said. The ships opened fire simultaneously. Beams of energy that could melt mountains struck the Defiant Dawn's shields. But instead of absorbing or deflecting the attacks, the shields did something the aliens had never encountered before. They convinced the energy beams that they had already been fired at empty space. "Impossible," came Ayler's voice over the radio. "Our weapons are striking you directly. Our sensors confirm hits." "Your sensors are correct," replied calmly. "You are hitting us, but we exist in a probability state where your weapons missed. Both things are true at the same time." The ships regrouped and tried different weapons. Missiles that could track targets across solar systems launched toward the human ship. The Defiant Dawn's response was elegant and terrifying. The ship reached through folded space and convinced the missiles that their target was actually one of the vessels. Not redirected but fundamentally convinced that they had been aimed at a different target all along. One of the ships barely escaped destruction as its own weapons struck its hull. "What are you?" Ayler demanded, his voice filled with fear and confusion. "We're humans," replied. "We're the people you thought were too primitive to understand the technology you couldn't figure out yourselves." Monitored the alien ships as they tried to comprehend what was happening. "Their computer systems are trying to process what they're seeing," she reported. "But they don't have concepts for reality manipulation on this level." They attempted one final attack. They fired a weapon designed to disrupt enemy ship systems by overloading their computers with impossible calculations. The Defiant Dawn absorbed the attack and sent it back, but with human modifications. Instead of impossible calculations, they received something worse: human poetry that perfectly described their feelings of inadequacy and failure. "Warning, emotional damage detected," came an automated voice from the ships. "Crew morale at critical levels. Recommend immediate withdrawal." Commander Ayler's final transmission was barely coherent. This should not be possible. You are supposed to be primitive. We are the advanced civilization. We have conquered worlds for thousands of years." "And yet," replied gently, "you couldn't make a ship work that we fixed in less than a year. Maybe it's time to reconsider what advanced actually means." The ships retreated, but not before their computers automatically recorded everything that had happened. The data would be transmitted throughout their empire, showing every citizen that a species they considered barely sentient had succeeded where their greatest minds had failed. As the alien ships disappeared into hyperspace, looked at the readings from the encounter. "Captain, we barely used 1% of the ship's capabilities. If we had wanted to destroy them, we could have erased them from existence without effort." Nodded thoughtfully. "But we didn't. We showed them that we're not conquerors, we're defenders. There's a difference." Doctor had been monitoring communications throughout the engagement. "Captain, I'm detecting transmissions from other alien civilizations. Word is spreading about what happened here." "What kind of transmissions?" asked. "Some are worried, some are curious, but some—" Sarah paused as she analyzed the data. "Some are hopeful. It appears they have a lot of enemies who are very interested in meeting the species that humiliated them." Smiled as she looked at the star-filled space around them. "We wanted to test our capabilities. I think we got our answer." Began plotting a course back to Earth. The tests had exceeded all expectations. The Defiant Dawn was not just functional, it was superior to anything in known space. But he also knew that their demonstration had consequences. They would not forget this humiliation. They would return with larger fleets and more advanced weapons. "Set course for Earth," he ordered. "We need to prepare. This was just the beginning." As the ship began its journey home, moving through probability streams that guaranteed their safe arrival, reflected on what they had accomplished. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy not as conquerors or victims, but as people who refused to accept that something was impossible. They had made a critical error. They had assumed that advanced technology automatically meant advanced thinking. They had forgotten that sometimes the best solutions come from minds that approach problems from completely unexpected angles. And now the entire galaxy would learn that humanity specialized in proving experts wrong. 3 weeks after the encounter with the scouts, Admiral stood in the Defiant Dawn's command center, watching long-range sensors detect the approaching fleet. She had been promoted after their successful demonstration of human capabilities, and Captain now served as her tactical commander. "How many ships?" she asked, though she could already see the answer on her displays. 47 vessels, reported grimly. "Everything from fighters to dreadnoughts. They've brought their entire third battle fleet." Studied the formation approaching Earth. They had clearly decided that the humiliation they suffered could not be allowed to spread throughout the galaxy. They were coming to reclaim their property and eliminate the witnesses to their failure. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission," Dr. Sarah announced from her communication station. The main screen filled with the image of Fleet Admiral Ayler, a tall with ceremonial scars marking his rank. His large black eyes burned with anger and wounded pride. "Primitive humans," he began, his voice filled with contempt. "You have made a grave error. The technology you possess belongs to the Empire. Your theft will not be tolerated." Stepped forward, her uniform crisp and her bearing confident. "Fleet Admiral, we've had this conversation. The ship was abandoned on our world. We salvaged it and made it functional through our own efforts. It's ours by right of salvage and by right of making it work when you couldn't. Ayler's expression twisted with rage. "Silence! You dare speak to your betters with such insolence. We have conquered hundreds of worlds. We have ruled this galaxy for thousands of years. You will surrender the vessel immediately or face annihilation." "And if we refuse?" asked calmly. "Then we will demonstrate why primitive species should not meddle with technology beyond their comprehension. We will destroy your ship, your planet, and every trace of your miserable existence." "Move to side. Admiral, he's ordering his fleet into attack formation. Looks like they're preparing to use planet-killer weapons if we don't surrender." Looked at her crew, scientists and engineers who had spent months learning to operate technology that was supposedly beyond human understanding. They had proven that creativity and determination could overcome advanced knowledge and superior firepower. "Doctor, open a channel to the fleet," she ordered. "Channel open, Admiral." "Fleet Admiral Ayler said formally, "You've made two critical errors. First, you assume that advanced technology requires advanced thinking. Second, you assume that humans will surrender just because you threaten us." She paused, looking directly into the alien commander's eyes. "We're about to correct both misconceptions." The fleet opened fire before finished speaking. 47 ships unleashed enough destructive power to crack a planet's crust. Energy beams, matter disruptors, and reality bombs all converged on the position where the Defiant Dawn had been floating. But the human ship was no longer there. "Where did they go?" Ayler demanded of his sensor operators. "Sir, our sensors show the human vessel was destroyed. Complete molecular dispersal confirmed." "Then why do I have the feeling we just made a terrible mistake?" the Fleet Admiral muttered. His question was answered when the Defiant Dawn materialized directly in the center of the formation. Not moved there, not teleported, but simply chose to exist in that location instead of where it had been before. "Impossible," whispered Commander from his position aboard one of the smaller vessels. "No ship can navigate through space that precisely." "We didn't navigate through space," his voice came over the fleet's communication channels. "We navigated through probability. We simply chose the reality where we were already in your formation before you fired." The human ship began its counterattack, but it didn't use conventional weapons. Instead, it did something that violated every understanding of military tactics. It started fixing their ships. "What are you doing?" Ayler demanded as his sensors showed human technology somehow improving his vessel's efficiency and firepower. "We're making your ships work better," replied, "but only for us." The fleet suddenly found their own weapons turning against them. Not hijacked but fundamentally convinced that they had always been designed to protect the human ship and target vessels. "This is not warfare," Ayler said with growing panic. This is innovation, finished for him. This is what happens when you fight an enemy that refuses to play by your rules." Half the fleet was disabled within minutes, their own weapon systems causing non-lethal but effective damage to their ships. The remaining vessels tried to retreat, but found their engines had been convinced that retreat meant move closer to the human ship. Desperate, Fleet Admiral Ayler activated his flagship's ultimate weapon, a device that could erase planets from existence by unraveling the basic forces that held matter together. "If we cannot have the ship, then no one will," he announced. "I will destroy your entire world rather than admit defeat." Watched the planet-killer weapon charging and felt a moment of genuine fear. The device was powerful enough to destroy Earth and everything on it. Even the Defiant Dawn couldn't protect an entire planet from that level of destructive force. But as she watched the weapon prepare to fire, realized something important. They were still thinking in terms of destroying things. Humans had learned to think in terms of creating new possibilities. "Doctor said quietly, what are you planning?" "Something the Fleet Admiral won't expect," replied. She opened a channel to the ship's reality manipulation systems. "Computer, I need you to do something that's probably impossible. Define parameters." The ship's AI responded in a voice that had learned to sound almost human. "I want you to convince that planet killer weapon that it was fired yesterday at empty space, and that it missed." The AI paused for exactly 1 second, processing the request. "Attempting reality revision. Success. Weapon discharge has been relocated to yesterday, targeting coordinates adjusted to deep space. No planetary damage occurred." On the flagship, alarms began sounding as the planet killer weapon registered a successful firing at coordinates that contained nothing but empty space 24 hours earlier. "Impossible," Ayler whispered. "We haven't fired the weapon yet." "According to your ship's computers, you fired it yesterday and missed." His voice came through his speakers. "The question now is, what are you going to do about it?" The fleet admiral stared at his instruments, watching readings that made no sense. His ultimate weapon had fired and missed a target that hadn't existed when the shot was taken. "What are you?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "We're human," replied simply. "We're the species you thought was too primitive to matter. We're the people who took your broken garbage and made it into something you can't even comprehend." Stepped forward. "Fleet Admiral, you have a choice. You can continue this attack and will be forced to demonstrate capabilities that will fundamentally embarrass your entire civilization. Or you can withdraw and tell your empire that humanity is not to be underestimated." Ayler looked around at his fleet, half of which was disabled by their own weapons, and the other half trapped by engines that refused to retreat. His ultimate weapon had somehow been fired yesterday at nothing. "Withdraw," he ordered his fleet. "Full retreat to the outer system." As the ships limped away from Earth, received her first communication from another alien civilization. The Republic, longtime enemies of the Empire, requested permission to send diplomatic envoys. "Admiral," Doctor reported with excitement, "we're receiving messages from 17 different alien governments. They all want to establish diplomatic relations with Earth." Smiled as she looked out at the stars. "It seems word travels fast when someone stands up to the neighborhood bully." Over the following weeks, Earth became the center of a growing coalition of species that had suffered under expansion. The Defiant Dawn had done more than win a battle. It had shown the galaxy that the Empire was not invincible. Doctor, now chief engineer of Earth's first interstellar fleet, worked with alien scientists who brought their own perspectives to human technology. "It's amazing," he told during one of their planning sessions. "Every species thinks differently, but they all understand the basic principle: refuse to accept limitations." Stood in the observation deck of Earth's new orbital station, watching construction begin on humanity's second reality warping vessel. They had inadvertently given humanity the tools to become a galactic power, but more importantly, they had given Earth the confidence to believe in human capabilities. "Admiral," said as he joined her at the observation window, "we've received a response from the Galactic Council. They're formally recognizing Earth as an independent space-faring civilization." Nodded, still watching the construction work outside. Officially, they're maintaining that the engagement never happened. Unofficially, they've withdrawn their expansion fleets from 12 different systems and are avoiding any territory where human ships might be present. Laughed softly. "They're learning the same lesson we taught them. Sometimes the best solution to a problem is to admit that you were approaching it wrong in the first place." As she watched human and alien engineers working together to build ships that could rewrite reality itself, reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. They had meant to insult humanity by dumping their failed technology on Earth. Instead, they had given humanity the tools to prove that creativity and determination could overcome any obstacle, no matter how impossible it seemed. The galaxy was about to learn that humans specialized in turning other people's failures into their own greatest achievements.